Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to be able to have these conversations and get these messages out because the mainstream media is not and is actually censoring them. So we figured we'd use whatever platforms we have available to offer it to wonderful people, wonderful, brave, courageous people like yourself to get the word out and actually be able to have a voice and a platform on which that voice can kind of get out to more people, so people can have a more clear idea of what exactly is going on. So I'll start off, Sarah, with your bio. Sarah Tajunian has been a nurse since 2004 and has been working in a nursing home for the greater part of her career. In 2017, she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which was the catalyst for her life-changing actions. Through natural healing, she was able to get completely clean, lost 60 pounds, and healed herself from most of her myalgia. She has done extensive research on psychology and trauma and initiated an organization called, which I love the name of, Lighting Up Dark Corners to empower survivors. She's known to be the voice of the voiceless, and she intends to keep it that way. Sarah was actually fired from both her nursing jobs. Her license is under investigation and has been defamed by the media for speaking out against the lockdowns. She is now the co-founder of Canadian Frontline Nurses, an organization aimed at uniting nurses and keeping our oath to do no harm by speaking up against these draconian measures and restoring medical freedom. She envisions a future where healthcare is based mainly on preventative care, natural treatments, and treating the person as a whole, meaning caring for mind, body, and spirit as one. Sarah, thank you so much. I have been looking forward to speaking with you for a few weeks now, so I'm so glad we were able to coordinate schedules and make this happen today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So maybe I'll start there. So you were a nurse up until when?
Well, I still consider myself a nurse, but I had two jobs. So I was fired from my first job in November and my second job in January.
Okay. Okay. So in November 2020 and January 2021.
Yes.
Okay. And where are you, Sarah? Are you in Ontario?
Oh, yes. I'm in Toronto, Ontario.
You're in Toronto, Ontario. Okay, great. So I came across Sarah on social media platforms. She's been speaking out at freedom rallies, and this is where I learned of her. And I heard quite a few of her speeches and was deeply touched by her passion, her care, her genuine need to want to make a difference in a system that is not being completely honest with what exactly is going on. So Sarah, maybe I'll ask you about what happened. Like where did things start? As you know, you were working at the two nursing homes that you were speaking of, and where did you start to see things starting to not look right, or you became uncomfortable in what was happening? Maybe we'll start there. Give us a bit of history of that.
Well, I think it started, like you said, like in my bio, when I first started having symptoms of fibromyalgia. The doctors can figure out what I had until it became to the point where I couldn't even get out of bed. I could feel every single one of my joints hurting, my muscles, my memory was going, I felt bugs on my skin. I could hardly, I was so fatigued. I couldn't do anything. And I felt like the doctors didn't know what they were doing. I went to do so many tests and everything. And I thought, well, let me try and figure this out on my own. And so I started reading, and I found out about fibromyalgia and how it's about having a lot of toxicity and a lot of stress. And around the same time, I decided to change my life because I have a lot of trauma in my past. And I was told that, this fibromyalgia is a long-term disability. And so I was like 38, and I was like, this is not the way it's going to end for me. I'm a single mom, I have to work. And so I started doing my own research, but I also went through a 15-week program, a group therapy for survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And I learned there, I learned a lot about myself, but also that I wasn't alone. I was able to deal with my shame, and they gave me tools like how to reconnect with my inner child. So um, that's not crazy talk. People think you talk about the inner child. I used to think that. That's why I say that. I was like, inner child, what is that? But I had to reconnect with the parts of myself that didn't get what they needed as a child, and it was still affecting me as an adult. But long story short, I had to deal with my trauma. I learned that, I wasn't breathing at all, which was a big problem. So I learned how to breathe again. I was armoring my muscles, but also I was drinking and smoking. So I stopped that. But I also had to change my diet. A lot of things weren't agreeing with me. I had severe IBS. And so I changed my diet and I started exercising and I started feeling really, really much better. So I became like passionate about like natural healing. And, it became like, I didn't want anything toxic on me. I started making my own deodorant. Like, I don't want to put lotions on. So I became like really, really aware. And being aware of that made me really wary of the medical industry, unfortunately.
And you were a nurse at the time?
Yes, I've been a nurse since 2004
Mm-hmm.
in a nursing home. And working in a nursing home, you can really see that the government doesn't really care about these people. So that was, so having that, the fact, like, I was very aware for the last 2-3 years that I wanted to get out of the industry, which is why I was lighting up dark corners, which taught me how to heal myself without all the drugs that they give people with fibromyalgia, and I was like, I'm going to help people deal with their mental health so that their physical health could be better without medication. So I already had that kind of mentality and I wanted to get out the system, like I said. But as a single mom, it's not that easy. And life gets in the way. But when the lockdowns came, for me, it was a real big red flag. You guys are closing down the economy for these vulnerable people that you feed crap to all the time. So that was a big red flag for me. And, at first I thought nobody would believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was really vocal about it, and I was chief steward at work. So when they came and they forced us to get tested, I called them and I was really upset because, being a survivor, having my rights back and, being so strong about it, and now having them violate them and want to take me, I was really triggered.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked I told the union, and they were like, don't you care about your residents? Like, don't you? And so that scared me. I was like, okay. And I could see that people at work were really scared and like nobody felt like me. And so I had to be quiet for a while. I got scared and I was looking around and I was like, something's got to give. Something's got to give. And then they kind of lifted the lockdowns. And, I work in a nursing home. So it's like they stopped family members from coming in, which is all the residents have. And that keeps them alive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
That's why they stay alive. Like, that's basically what they have left. So that was like really weird too. And then there was this testing that I found out, like right away. I went into it and I was all over this. I was like, this is not real virus. I'm like, 600 to 8,000 people die of the flu every year. We do not shut down the economy. And what about tuberculosis? 1.5 million. So I was like, what's going on? But I was quiet and, I was really not doing well myself with my mental health. I was struggling. And, but went with the program, and the masks are driving me nuts. Like the whole PPE, like personal equipment. Ugh, it was just ridiculous. So then now the residents don't have no one, and they have us looking like not humans. You know what I mean? And then they're doing this testing, and the testing is like false positive, nobody's sick, and they're shutting down the building, and these people are in their rooms for 14 days. So
Mm-hmm.
that didn't happen for us in the first lockdown, but as soon as the second lockdowns happened, I was going to blow up. I go to the gym 2 to 3 hours a day to stay sober. Like that was my trade-off. And it was really important for me to release my anger, my stress. It's just, I need it. I love it. And not having that gave me a lot of anxiety. And they left the liquor stores open. I was like, what are they trying to do? Like, you know what I mean? So I was really upset. And I found this group online, a private group that, was all like against lockdown. So I was in there. I was so happy. Like I found my tribe, and I was like, I wrote like a post about like how ridiculous the outbreaks were, and how the testing was wrong and this and that. Somebody took a picture, went to my profile, found my employer, called them, and I was put under investigation right away. So that was the first job, the nursing job. And within that, I was so annoyed. I was like, these people are trying to shut me up. I was already like gun ho. I'm like, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to be vocal. And like the same weekend, I spoke at my first protest, and they fired me 3 days later.
Oh.
So I don't know if it was just the social media, but I'm sure that didn't help. So that was the first job.
Did they give you a reason?
Violation of the code of conduct and social media policy.
Okay. Were you aware of this before?
No.
Okay.
And the policy is anything, they can terminate you, like literally for anything that they don't like on your social media.
Okay. Did your regulatory body actually hand down any rules as far as what you were able to talk about and what you weren't able to talk about at all since the pandemic came?
They hadn't done it back then, but in December, they literally put out a public, I would call it a gag order, from the College of Nurses of Ontario that we're not allowed to speak against vaccines or masks, but it seems like it's okay to like take pictures of yourself after you took the shot. So it's really just a one-way narrative, which is weird because in nursing school, we're taught in the code of ethics that when the industry is going against the people, that it's our job to advocate and agitate. So literally, we are doing our jobs here by questioning. And it's like, there's no more questioning. There's no more debating. It's just one narrative, and we got to run with it, even though it's ridiculous.
Right. Interesting. So that seems a common one because the regulatory board for NDs put out something similar early on about not being able to talk about natural remedies. NDs, naturopathic doctors.
I saw that too.
And more recently was not being allowed to speak about vaccines. So it's interesting seeing those parallels. So I wanted to ask you then, you in one of the speeches that I heard you, and you spoke of that one of the speeches that I heard you gave, you spoke of the Biderman report. And you spoke that it's so eerie in that it resembles what you see happening now. Can you fill the audience in on that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm definitely not an expert on communism, but I came across this report, the Biderman report, which is supposedly, and it has a chart in it, which shows you methods that they use to make people comply. And I just thought like, okay, so it's isolation, very obvious. Control of perception. So like the way we're seeing this virus, I would say like it's really dangerous. It's, what it is. Like I would say that's that. Creating weakness, like, oh my God, like you're dangerous and you could die so easily. Threats and intimidation, obviously the fines, you can go to jail. People have become threats to people that don't agree with the narrative themselves, right? Occasional indulgences, like they're opening, they're closing, they're like, it's like, oh, you guys are going to be allowed to do this, and we're supposed to be excited, yet we still haven't come back to our full rights, like, and so I thought that was demonstrating dictatorship. I think this is what it looks like to me. Humiliation and
Degradation.
Degradation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for people who are not wearing, like, we're anti-mask, like all these very negative words, instead of saying like we're pro-life, you know, pro-informed consent, like, you know what I mean? No, we're anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers. Like, there's no gray zone. It's just black and white. Like, I've had all my shots. You know, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, although now that I've done some research, I don't want that stuff in me.
Yeah.
I'm all natural now. So it's like, no. And, you know, enforcing trivial demands. Like, you have people in nursing home haven't seen their families, some of them for over a year. So to me, that was alarming. I was like, oh my God, like, I'm not someone that believes in that thing. You know, I like to, I would like not to believe that it's similar to this, to tell you the truth. But I mean, there's a lot of similarities. And so, yeah, I did mention that in one of my speeches. And I thought it was something that people should think about or look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting because I had similar experience when this started to come up. So the main thing for me, it was a visceral body feeling. You know, when you, I don't know, as a mom, if you're somewhere and all of a sudden you get this irky feeling like your child, there's something going on and you need to call them right away or go to them right away.
Yes.
It's that kind of sense of urgency that came up within my whole body from the get-go, from the beginning of this you know, supposed pandemic. And in a way, it was not one that I could shake in any way or form. I mean, I tried because, you know, you kind of get questioned, and you know all about it by now. It becomes a question of your integrity, of your sanity, of all of it, because it's so out of the norm, and the mainstream news has been so successful at putting out one narrative and no other, contesting it. And if anything or anyone does, they're censored, and there's an attack to their dignity, their sanity, their just their entire existence. So, but it wasn't anything I could shake off. And I remember talking to my husband about it. I said, you know, it's like, my background in school was in psychology, and I said, I feel like this is the dark side of psychology playing out before our eyes, but like we're all walking around like zombies because no one is really, not a whole lot of people are noticing that anything is strange or questioning anything. Like the critical thinking has gone out the door. And so that came up for me as well. And even, sorry, you're going to hear my dog occasionally in the background. The shaming, the judging, the taglines of be responsible, stay home, stay safe. I was looking at my husband. I'm like, this is the dark side of psychology. This is what is being intentionally put out so that if you do have any reservations or questions, I mean, we should always be questioning things. Like you look at young children and the way they learn, like as soon as they hit 3, they're everywhere we go. I have a 3 and a 4-year-old. The question is why? What is going on? How is this happening? Mommy, what is that? There's like questions after questions after questions.
Right.
And that's normal. That's part of being human. And yeah, so right now it's this sort of environment where we're not allowed to question. As far as questioning, we should all be questioning, and it's normal. It's part of the human curiosity that actually helps us to learn and evolve and not repeat the same mistakes. So even 6 feet distancing was happening, it all felt so wrong for me. I felt like, okay, so here's another strategy to keep people away, to prevent them from conversation, to prevent them from discussion, to prevent them from evaluating our current set of circumstances. But I also believe strongly in human resilience, and look where we are now. We've figured out different ways to connect at this time, even with all the restrictions. And you spoke of childhood trauma, and I think that's an important one, because even what I've heard parents who are having, in my mind, how I'm seeing it, parents who are having a tough time in really understanding and knowing and seeing the effects of the masks, the effects of social distancing, the effects of not being able to see their friends and have regular interactions, have physical contact, not being able to see family as they normally would or go to events as they normally would. If parents are having a tough time themselves coming to terms with that, then what I hear being said often is children are resilient. They'll be fine. And to be honest with you, it's children that grow up to be adults and spend their whole entire adulthood trying to go back to childhood trauma and work on those within their adult lives. That's indicative of the fact that we need to take care of our children and actually take appropriate action where we feel like something is not safe, or where we feel that something needs to be done differently. We need to be their advocates. We need to stand strong. And we need to be honest in as far as what is making us uncomfortable. Because oftentimes I recognize this and I get this. And I too, like you, had been a single mom for 5 years. So I've been there, and I completely understand and empathize with the hardships involved there. But at the same point, Sarah, I feel like if we're not willing to see this very clearly for what it is, every lockdown has been harder and stronger. We're not going to, it's not going to go away. Our agreement with the government and being complacent with what's taking place is not going to make it better. It's only going to take us further down into a dark place. And if we're not willing to address this now, at some point it's going to, if it hasn't already, and I think it's affected all of us in Canada by now, even in BC, it's not as hard as it is in Ontario. Later, it's going to come like right here, where you won't be able to make it okay for yourself. So you're going to have to decide if it's going to be safe for you to keep your child in school or not, or you need to pull them out and decide homeschooling. If that will mean, what do you do with your job? Is that going to prevent you from going to your 9 to 5? And is that going to shake things up within the household? So I think sooner or later, we're going to all have to come to terms with that if we haven't already. But maybe I could get your advice with regards to how you've seen this. You gave a talk recently with regards to children and mass, and maybe I can ask you to dive into that a little bit more for us.
Well, I think it's interesting that I'm hearing myself in the background. Is that normal?
I will mute at my end so you don't hear the echo.
Okay. I think it's interesting. A lot of the people that are realizing what's happening are actually in psychology, because as you were saying, also for the adults, a lot of what's happening is that they're in survival mode because they're scared, right? Fear has been implemented in them, and so they can't think properly. And so, because you would think that it's common sense that you wouldn't want to cover your child's face or anyone's face. You're breathing your life force. So it's ridiculous, but we have to understand that people are really scared. They're living like in survival mode, like they're using their reptilian brain, which does not allow them to use their critical thinking, which is really, really stressful. But also, having done all this work that I've done, like you said, I am that adult that had to work well, I just struggled all my life. And, you know, I'm lucky that I'm alive, and I'm one of them that actually did my work, because a lot of people never do the healing. And so they don't recover. And so these kids that are going through a lot of trauma now, in my opinion, it'll take decades to for them to recover from this. Um, so yeah, a lot of trauma. So how the masks are affecting kids, obviously, physiologically, kids need more oxygen than we do because their brain is developing. So they need all the oxygen they can get. And experts are saying that already, even within a few minutes, the damage is like, it's irreversible. And so these kids' brains is not developing properly already. So there's that. And then comes in the trauma. I can't imagine being a kid in this day and age. When I was 8 years old, like I said, I was a kid with a lot of anxiety and issues. But when my parents separated, I had this fear suddenly that not only they were going to die, but I was going to die. And everything became like a disease. And it was like crazy in my head. Like I couldn't enjoy anything. Like it became a big problem. And I had adults telling me that everything was fine all the time and comforting me. So, and to me, when I think back of that like year that I was like that, like it's just complete trauma. I hate thinking about it. I was just paralyzed all the time. And so I cannot imagine this is what these kids are going through. They think that they're bad. They're now disease. They can kill people. So I can't imagine what kind of effect that's going to have on their lives growing up. Obviously, we're showing them that they're not important. We have kids complaining that they can't breathe with the masks on, and teachers are telling them you need to keep your mask on. Like, what? Are we serious right now? What has it come to? Like, seriously, this is like someone can't breathe and you're telling them like that they can't take their mask off. It's so we're teaching them to self-harm. Like, I was a people pleaser all my life and didn't know. I had to learn about boundaries. Like, there's no boundaries. We're teaching them the opposite of what a healthy mental health is growing up, where everything is the opposite. Everything is upside down, not just the mask. And so, you know, I can go on and on with the mask, what we're creating. Like they're going to grow up to not be confident people. They're going to be submissive. They're growing up as victims. And so we're going to have a society of victims, which the people who are trying to control us will have a blast controlling, because they'll be so easy to control. They're already like robots. We're teaching them to stand on stickers like robots. Where like they can't even talk. There was this email from the school board, I think. It's like no mask, no voice. Like if you don't have your mask on, you can't speak. Like what? Like that? No, I just speechless. And plus then there's the other side of the mask that's not even the trauma, but like it does not help. Okay, nurses do not wear that kind of mask if there's an actual dangerous virus. This virus is 3,000 times smaller than the holes in your masks. Might as well put a big metal fence and say this is for the mosquitoes. So that's ridiculous. And another thing that I like to tell people, just for like common sense, I mean, you know, your car, the muffler pollution comes out, you know, like what would happen to your car if you like blocked that with a mask? Like when all people know, like, oh yeah, the whatever, the exhaust or whatever you call it that's in the car, well, you know, it'll become toxic, and the car will blow up at some point because this stuff needs to come out. Well, it's the same thing with people. We have all our toxins, everything our body doesn't want, viruses, bacteria, germs that our body doesn't want has already dealt with, is rejecting, and now we are re-inhaling. So now we are weakening our immune system, basically. And already we're not breathing properly. So our immune system is in distress. And what people don't understand is like, oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. No, it adds up. It doesn't just, it's not like you take it off and your body comes back to normal. It adds up. And so what it does is that your body becomes acidic. So it goes acidosis, which creates a lot of inflammation, which is the basis of many, many diseases. So what are we doing? Like, we're making ourselves sick. In my opinion, there's absolutely no benefits to the mask. Plus, what happened? These masks are supposedly biohazardous. Where are the places to dispose of them? You're so quick to put chemicals on our hands every second, but you don't have the proper disposals for our masks that are full of the virus that's killing everyone. Okay, I could go on and on and on and on, but I think that's enough for now.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that do not make sense. And part of this, like, I wish this was actually, this can easily become episode at some point, I feel, in our lives where it'll be like a Saturday Night Live is like, do you remember when? And we can sit back and laugh about this because it's really comical.
I sure hope we will.
Yeah, it's so comical if it wasn't so serious. And
it's ridiculous. Like, from the beginning, I've been like, what is going on? And it's like, I've always been outside the box, but I mean, this is like, wow, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people who have typically lived outside the box, I feel like we're all gathering around each other now outside the box, looking in and saying, what the heck is going on? It's like I was talking to my husband about this. It's like nobody is healthy anymore. Like, they have the term asymptomatic because, asymptomatic is a person that has no symptoms. And it's like, even if you're healthy, you get this label because clearly you can't tell for yourself. You need an authority outside of yourself to tell you if you're feeling good or not. So I think that's also a common trend too. Even when you were speaking of children, there is when you were in certain predicaments or certain situations and circumstances, and people or adults were telling you it's okay, it's going to be fine. And we have that now. A lot of parents, in order to console their children, say, "Oh, don't be alarmed by it. It's going to pass. It's going to be okay. Just cover your nose a little bit. I know it's uncomfortable, but just do it for a little bit longer." I just spoke with Najla, another mother, just last week, and she was talking about, that would be the way that she would try to make it better for her little girls. But then she realized quickly that it wasn't okay. When the child is telling you that they're having trouble breathing, it's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay for us to say, well, hold it up a little bit longer, have trouble breathing for just a few more minutes or a few more days or a few more months. And I mean, the dates keep getting pushed. I don't know where Ontario is right now. I know BC is apparently going into another lockdown. And I turned to my husband, I said, because we don't watch TV, we don't have a TV. I'm like, oh, so I hear through social media that we're apparently going into another lockdown. Like, did we ever come out of a lockdown for us to go back into a lockdown? Like, there's even, colors and zones for it now. And as far as which degree of lockdown that you're in, I mean, like, you can't make this shit up. Like, it's
all fear tools. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's just...
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about your platform. Remind me of what it's called again.
Canadian Frontline Nurses.
Thank you.
So you want me to tell you a little?
Tell me a little bit more about that. What made you want to create that organization, and what is it exactly about? What do you guys do?
Well, it was, I was reached out by the other nurses. So there was a couple of American nurses, Erin and Nicole, who went viral with their videos and stuff like that. And I guess they were looking for nurses, and me, and I don't know if you know Kristen, she's the co-founder of Canadian Frontline Nurses with me. But she's really good at communicating. And so they reached her and she was like, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And so we all came together, all 6 of us, and founded Global Frontline Nurses. And I don't know if you heard about this, but that's when we went to Washington to speak. And then there was a big, I got fired after coming back for that. We were called domestic terrorists. We were, we were at, it was on June 6th in Washington, D.C. It was like the Capitol riots or whatever, but we weren't there for that. But we were tangled into that, put like conspiracy theory nurses were at the riots. And, we came back and we were like all over like national news, all over the news in the States too. And the RCMP came at our door, and people thought were calling us domestic terrorists. There was like death threats and all that. It was really not fun. But we came back, and we both got fired after that, because it was already public that we couldn't speak about it. So then it was easy for them. They just and they said it to the media, like they're under investigation and they're going to be fired, blah, 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 blah. And so after that happened, we were even more motivated to continue. But under the Global Frontline Nurses, our plan was to build a chapter in every country. So me and Kristen have been working on Canadian Frontline Nurses. And so that's an organization to unite all nurses. And we want to organize. We want to speak out to the public, educate the public, and bring awareness to what's going on. But also we have a vision where we no longer want to fight against this system, because we realize that you can fight against a humongous system all you want. You're going to get exhausted. It's not kind of sustainable. We want to let that system burn down on its own, because it seems to be doing a great job. And we're building a new system, and we're well, I don't know if I even want to call it a system, but we want to bring real health. And so we want more holistic health, preventative care, right? And we want more natural treatments, and we want to look at the person as a whole, like you said in my bio. And so that's what we're doing. We've been speaking out a lot. We have a class action coming up against the CNO, April 14th. We're going to be there. We have a press conference / protest that we're going to do there with other professionals against lockdown. So we have a lot going on. Actually, Canadian Global Frontline Nurses also partnered with others to create Professionals Against Lockdowns, and that's like Liberty Coalition Canada. So there's pastors, there's police on guard, there's teachers, and I think they're called Education for Rights. So we all came together, and we have like this little protest season where we're each going to go to our main, like us, it's the college, police would be, police, the teachers would be the Ministry of Education, whatever, something like that. And we're all supporting each other in that. And so we're doing that, and also speaking out as professionals to show people on it. People can go and register on the website if they want to go public as professionals, and like people can see, oh, there's a lot of professionals. So we have that going on. We're also we partner with Stand for Thee, and we're doing Stand for Seniors. And so please use hashtags SOS. It stands for hashtag Save Our Seniors. So we have we're trying to help seniors. So actually tomorrow we're going to be in Brantford at a nursing home, speaking out for a gentleman that hasn't seen his wife for over a year. He has a mask exemption, and they will not respect it or honor it. And the police, the mayor, and the nursing home have blocked his emails. Yeah, it's really, so we want to help him. We're going to go and bring awareness and see if we can get his wife to come outside. But also we're working on an injunction for power of attorneys, because we realized that they went through the courts. People are going through the courts, and it's taking too long, and they're not getting access to their families. But we thought maybe to try, because people have power of attorneys. So legally, they should have access to the people inside, like they are the legal power of attorneys. And so it was found out that they can maybe do an injunction. So lawyers don't want to do this. This is another problem people are having. People want to sue and things like that, but like lawyers are kind of like scared to do it. But in this case, the lawyer can prepare it, and it's easy to do it on your own. So if it does work, then we would have a template, and then other people can start using it. So let's see how that goes. But we're doing a lot of like stuff like that. Kristen and I, Canadian Frontline nurses, we're trying to bring awareness across Canada. So we go, we speak at protests pretty much every weekend now. And like we have Monday Zoom meetings to support our nurses, and we're organizing, we have newsletters. We're just growing, basically.
So life after leaving, your being fired from your 2 jobs has not slowed down for you a bit.
No, it's been busier than ever.
Yeah.
If that's even possible.
And tell me a little bit more about that. Like, I feel like a lot of people do go to worst case scenario, or they don't even want to fathom it. So maybe they don't want to go to worst case scenario, and that keeps them locked into kind of doing their 9 to 5 and kind of keeping in line and following the rules. You've gone down that path. You went through that sort of what would I call it, portal. So where have you landed? What does life look like for you now? How has it changed?
Well, life actually looks like what I wanted it. Well, not everything else around, but in my little like career thing, I guess. Like I said, I wanted to get out of that system, and I wanted to create something better. And now I feel like I have so much support around me. Like basically everyone around me wants the same thing. And I think that it's like the opportunities are everywhere right now. We're so busy right now working on the lockdowns, but I'm very confident, like people are coming from all over. Like, I have this treatment, I have this, can we do this together? So I'm not really worried about that. We're going to have so much going on. Actually, we've even started, because Kristen is very big on like right away now starting to help people and prevent and this and that. So we have a podcast with all the nurses, the American nurses too, and it's called Ask the Nurses. It's every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It live streams from Nicole Suratek's Facebook. We put it all over the place, our social medias. I'll tell you after. But yeah, so they're doing that. They want to do courses. So we're trying to educate people on how to get healthy already. But for now, I'm building this Canadian Frontline nurses, and I feel like that's what I'm going to keep doing. And it's become my work. Like I'm employed by this business. It's a nonprofit, so it's not a business. But I mean, I was scared, but you know what? I didn't know this was going to happen when I got fired. The first time I got fired, I was like, oh, really? Now I'm fired? Okay, now I can speak up. Like, and then I went back to, I had a second job, and people in nursing homes can't work at their 2 jobs, right? We had to choose one. And so we lost money that way too. But I was able to go back to that job until they figured, like, this girl, they got really called. Like, what happened is when we were on the news, the College of Nurses has your employer's public. And so they received so many calls and threats that they couldn't keep me. You know what I mean? But I forget why I went there. The question was,
what does life look like now?
Oh yeah. And so, but like, I was ready to sell my house. Like, I was like, in my head, we're going to lose everything. This is my mentality. So to me, it was like a no-brainer. I was like, oh, okay, it's happening. To me, it happened for a reason, and it was going to happen anyways. And, I was so angry that no matter what, I'm really willing to be homeless. But I got to admit, I have kids, and my eldest daughter, who is 23, is quite upset with me and thinks I'm being very irresponsible, which is quite upsetting too, because we've been very close. So that's been hard that way. But I mean, opportunities have been, I wanted to write a book all my life. I finally wrote 1 chapter in a book. Awesome. But like, so many opportunities, like Robert Kennedy Jr. messaged me, and I got to meet like Dale Bigtree. Like, all these people that I love are now around me. And the support, people give us donations. So I haven't had any problems as of yet. And like, we have enough to, like, we're now looking into like lawyers for this class action. And so things are going great. Hopefully people will keep supporting us. And this is what we're doing for now. Things are things are awesome.
That's so
The
great.
future looks great if we could just like wake people up and stop them from complying.
Yeah.
Like this could be done tomorrow.
Yeah, that's totally my thinking too. It's like all it takes is for us to say, nope, we're not participating. That's it.
Exactly.
Like it seems so simple, but really that is all it takes. It's yeah. Yeah. So that's really awesome. Where did I want to go with that? We actually just had a conversation. We had a roundtable with, for the podcast platform, we had a roundtable with a shaman, Lemurian shaman by the name of Huna Flash, Magenta Pixie, and Dr. Christiane Northrup. And this was one of the key things that kept coming up. And as far as when you have the courage to stand up and do what feels aligned to what you feel you need to do and say, everything will line up for you. You know, everything will line up for you. And for us too, personally, my husband and I had gone to the worst case scenario, and we consciously thought about it. We said, okay, so if we speak out about this, and if we're kind of holding true to what we need to be doing and saying and contributing right now, what could happen? Okay, so you could lose your job, and we could be home. We could lose our home. We could lose our car. Okay, so my parents are there. Their house is almost paid off. And if that's not available to us, we just bought a tent last year. And the weather here, like we actually literally went through this, and we'd be okay.
So I believe you, because so did I. I was like, we're selling the house. I got like 120,000 in here. We can live for 3 years with that. We'll figure it out after.
Yeah. And I said to my husband, you know, it's like we can figure out this intermittent fasting thing and just stretch it out a little bit more so that we can feed our children, but like we'll be in tip-top shape and of really good health. But it's when I feel like that's actually really empowering, a really good strategy in dealing with fear, because if you even logically, you know, we use logic all the time, but I think we need to even actually harness our the ways in which we use logic. But we went down the worst case scenario within our worst fear manifesting, and we thought, okay, so we'll actually be okay. Like, you know, living in a tent and on this beautiful island, and we could do it year round because it's fairly, it's not too bad here on Vancouver Island.
Yeah, I'm coming over.
Yeah, anytime. Just let us know. You're more than welcome to stay with us, whether it be at the tent or at the house.
I'll get my own tent.
Sounds good. But it's really helpful because when you go there, when you go to the worst case scenario and you logically kind of work through the sequences and the scenarios and the circumstances that kind of take you there, you kind of sit with it a little bit and think, I can do that. I can manage that. So then what you're dealing with now is no longer this big, massive, scary monster.
Exactly.
It's like what ultimately feels good in my body and my heart and on my conscience and for myself and for my family. And can I stay true to that? Like it really simplifies things.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's literally like the chapter of my book is about that, like how I overcame, because I went through this kind of fear, facing my fear before when I left my husband. He was violent, he was abusive, and I had to leave with my 3 kids, and it was really difficult. He lived not too far. He was threatening. He brought me to court and wanted spousal support, and I was taking care of the kids. Like he was like lying. So he really tried to bury me in that way, and he had threatened to kill me and almost had before. So I was scared to die, but I was ready to do it. And coming out of that experience, I came out so much stronger. Like I stood by the courts. I did what I was so scared. It would have been so much easier to just give up. But I didn't, and I went through it, and no matter how indebted I came out, and you know, and to me, nobody wins in court. And I didn't even really want child support, but it was ordered, and he left the country when it was. And I think it's a blessing in disguise. But going through that, years of like being in fear, but doing it anyways, it gave me the platform to do this. And I strongly believed, like you said, that things were going to fall into place. And when you do what's right and when you're aligned with your values, like you said, everything does fall into place much better than was before, because I was working for and doing things that, like the last time I gave a vaccine was a few days before I got fired. And we don't give vaccines often, but like when we have new admissions, like sometimes they need the pneumococcal or something. And I gave that vaccine feeling like I might be killing, like harming this person. And I was like, this is it. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. So for me, it was the end, and everything fell. It's so funny how everything falls like in place in such a way. Like it happened, like they investigated me. They pissed me off. I was like, they're not going to let me talk online. I was like, that's it. Like, and I've always been a big, like I said, like I became chief steward because the union was useless in the workplace and no one represented me. So I was like, well, I'm going to be chief steward and I'm going to, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, I think people should just do it. I'm like, it's actually part of my speech. I don't know if you saw my speech this week, but it's actually part of it. It's like, you know, this is how it worked for me. And it's my dream. I did the scariest thing. I took a leap of faith. And then I got my dream that I always wanted, that I would have never got if I wouldn't have stepped into this scary thing. And I'm like, it's the same for everybody. You all have a chance to get out of the system that we built that's killing us and build something that's reconnecting us to our humanity and our roots. Let's do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Sarah, if people want to support you or get more information or understand what the platforms that you're a part of, if they want to get to know those more, mention that now. I'll also reach out to you again and have you email those to me, and I'll write it underneath the show notes here as well.
Okay, great. So people should actually go definitely subscribe to our website in case we get censored, because like you said, we get censored all the time. I uploaded a couple of my speech to YouTube and they don't like my speech. There's nothing. There's no statistic. It's just, and no, they don't like it. So we get censored a lot. So it would be great if people can subscribe to our website, www.canadianfrontlinenurses.ca. And so they can follow us. Also, we just started a newsletter, bi-monthly newsletter. And so they can stay up to date with what we're doing like that. But also, please, if possible, we need your help with donations. And there's donation button on the website. And then we're on like so many platforms. So it's a little confusing for people because when I first started, I was on my own. I started Nurses Against Lockdowns. So I have some social media, and that did so well. Like on Facebook, I think with the followers and the likes, there's like 40,000 people. And on Instagram, I had like 6,000 followers. So it did so well that even though I didn't continue with Nurses Against Lockdown, we kind of put it under Canadian Frontline Nurses, because Canadian Frontline Nurses is for the future too, but Nurses Against Lockdown is just like a little hashtag of the lockdowns, right? That will go away once they go away, I guess. But people can follow us on Instagram, Big Shoot, and Facebook on Nurses Against Lockdowns, but everything else is Canadian Frontline Nurses. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Telegram. What else is there? I think that's it.
You're on YouTube, yeah? I was trying to find you on YouTube. So
under Canadian Frontline Nurses.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, people can follow me on my personal stuff too, Sarah Tajunian. But yeah, we're almost on everything. So it's great. Like, share our stuff, people.
Awesome. Sarah, what is your vision? Where do you want to, because I really feel like what you're saying is correct. We're seeing these old systems, in order for change, drastic change to happen, there is going to be a period of chaos. And I feel like that's where we're in, right? That's what we're in right now. And as much as it looks scary, I know for me personally, I'm actually super excited because I know it's the falling of old systems, and it gives us then the opportunity to figure out where we want to go, what we want to create, and what we want that to look like. What's your vision?
I'm so excited too. I mean, I'm scared though. I have like my trauma always, like I get excited and then it's like, oh, don't get excited. Like the doom comes in and it's like, oh, okay, I'm not excited. But I really am. Like I was thinking about it because I have a lot of anxiety. It's really hard for me to redirect myself, like with the lockdowns and stuff. But I was thinking, everything you ever wanted, all the people, like it, even the people now that I'm surrounded with, like the people that were not necessarily for me have gone. And all this people, I wanted friends like this. I was like, where are the people that are like me? And now they're everywhere. So like, you know, surrounded by great people that all have this, like want to reconnect with humanity and are tired of this disconnect. And it's like, this is what we wanted. This is what I wanted. All my shirts, like I wear shirts like this, like revolution, like, you know, power to the people. Like I was always like that. And so and like the freedom fighter, like I was wearing those before. So I'm like, this is like, people are like, this is what you wanted. Like you wanted to be a martyr. And I'm like, no.
You prepared for this.
No, but I mean, I wanted a change. Like I was very disturbed. 30,000 kids die every day before the lockdowns of malnourishment, of like malnutrition. And it's like people weren't aware, and I was having a very hard time walking through the system, and like, you know, I'd get triggered a lot, like, don't you realize that this is going on? Like, you know, I'd want to wake people up, and people are like, oh my God, you're so serious, why can't you just so basically what I've always wanted is actually happening. I want humanity to be at peace. We don't need these wars. All these things that are happening are created by a few people. This is not who we are. This is not the essence of humanity. They've made us think that we're bad, you know, and now to the extent where we can't even like touch our family members. Like, what is going on? So, you know, I think that this is our chance to have like a great new world filled with peace and love, like on earth, like, you know, live in peace on earth, not when you die. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's where we're going.
Awesome. I was telling my husband, I said, so after the initial extreme anger and panic at the very beginning of this pandemic kind of settled and passed a little bit, it would come back in waves for me. But when the climax of it for me at that point kind of started to soothe away, I said to my husband, I have a feeling you and your profession are actually going to see the light. Because I mean, he's been a massage therapy. His major was in kinesiology, and then he went to massage therapy, and then naturopathic medicine, osteopathy, and now he's working towards his PhD in integrative medicine. But wow. It's like through all of these learnings, and he considered going into, you know, conventional medicine initially, but it was actually a naturopathic doctor who helped him immensely with all of his slew of allergies, like severe allergies, asthma, to the point that he would actually go into an oxygen bubble oftentimes as a kid. But it was a naturopathic doctor that actually was able to help him where the entire system had failed him. So it kind of helped him to navigate and land where he is now. But similar to your story, it's like the more you connect with people, the more you interact with people, the more he speaks with his patients, he realizes that, you know, something that's going on a physical level is oftentimes pointing to something that's taking place on a mental, emotional, or spiritual level. And so this is why we even created this platform, AIJ, because we give people this experience of movement, nature, quiet time, coming away from our regular habitual routine to actually step into a safe, cocooned surrounded by a lot of nature, soothing sounds of community, so that we can start to do the work and the processes of excavation, of looking at our shadows. So this is even why I loved your, what was it that you had called it? Something dark.
Lighting up dark corners.
Yeah, I love it, because it's not about actually getting rid of the dark corners. You want to light it up in that you want to bring attention to it. You want to actually look at it. You want to come to a place where you can see things very clearly as they are, which I think is where we are right now. Yes. If we're willing to see it and hear it and be with it as it is, because a lot of it is going to be really hard to look at. Like, who wants to believe that the government is actually out to get you? You know, they have terms and they have institutions for those things, if you even think like that. But
yeah.
But realistically, if, you know, these conversations that we've been having and this light that's now coming in, which I interpret as divine intervention, that's happening. With that light coming in, you're going to start to see all of it. You're going to start to see all the dark crevices, all the shady figures, and we're going to have to come face to face with that, because we're going to have to see things as they are in order to first not let it happen again, not allow for it to happen again, and to then move beyond that and start to create a new vision of, okay, now that we don't have those shackles on, now that we don't have those blocks preventing us from being and stepping into the fullness of who we can be, what is it that we actually want to do? And it's these sort of conversations and interactions that will start to tickle our senses awake, because we oftentimes haven't daydreamed about those things. But our imagination is like one of our superpowers. And if we can start to get excited about those visions and possibilities, I mean, I feel like there's no limit as to what we can create.
There's not. Our limit is only the limits we put on ourselves.
And see, this is where our trauma has served us, because when we have, I too was married to a really challenging person, a narcissist, and everything that was happening was always put back on me, and it was a really challenging divorce. And I remember even past that divorce, the divorce took 2 years in itself, and it was really hard, really challenging. Similar story to what you were describing, even with the support, with the child support. But I know that when this pandemic hit, and there was child abuse also growing up, I know when this pandemic hit, my initial reaction, I was so angry at God. I was so angry. That was the very first emotion that I had, and it was directed to, what the hell? Like, haven't I been through enough? Like, things were just starting to get easier, and you're bringing this heavy, that I could feel the energy, and I'm like, you're bringing this to me now? Like, to me now? How dare you? And then, you know, and then it passed, and then I realized, holy cow, all those challenges, all the trauma, all the hardships, all the work where, you know, throughout my childhood, where I was depressed for so long, bedridden for a month and a half, I really feel like all of it had prepared me for this. Because right now, I really don't care what people think of me. I truly don't. Because if I ultimately can't sleep with myself at night, if I ultimately can't live within my own body and feel comfortable, then what other people's opinion really have no effect. So it's like, it's made me that much stronger to be able to be who I am and take the action that I feel is necessary wholeheartedly, with a lot of courage and bravery. And how fortunate am I to be able to meet amazing people like you on a regular basis.
I know, me too, right? It's amazing. And I feel the same way. I tell people, I was like, I was built for this. Every year of my life, everything I did, like, it's so like, and plus I felt pushed. People are like, how did you do it? And I did it. But really, there was like the energy. I had no choice. I feel like I had to do it. it's weird because I'm not, I didn't grow up in any religious setting at all. And so even my parents like were raised like in more like strict environments, and therefore did not want any of it. So I was even raised maybe to think that it was wrong, or it was, you know what I mean? But since I've been working on my healing, I've been very conscious of like the energies around me and this and that. And I might not believe in a specific religion, but I actually, Kristen gave me a Bible, and it has like it's like a guide, like it's easy to read because I could never, and because people send me a lot of like quotes and stuff now, and I get to read them, and I love it. I'm like, yes, I'm wearing my armor. Yes, like I love it. And who would have ever thought? But I believe that the universe, the energy, God, I believe in that. And I like it, whether it's like the life force, whatever you want to call it. And I believe that I was pushed to do it. And I think, and it's kind of weird, like as a kid, I was always that kind of kid, like, we're going to save the world. And me and my cousin, who actually passed away, we were going to save the world. And it was always like something like, it's so weird. It's almost like we create our lives, I guess. I kind of like brought myself to that, but also there's like, it's the way everything falls together. I think it's a miracle. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. I'm on board with that. I spent my parents too. I mean, my background, I was born in Iran, lived there for 8 years, and I was born during the revolution when it went from a very Western society to the exact opposite, run by religious fanatics. So my parents went to the other extreme of like saying no to all religion. And I grew up basically without faith. And I was, I would say, an atheist probably for a period there as well. And it was my own practice through yoga, through really connecting with my body, that I felt like my inner senses or inner intelligence, like a body intelligence, actually started to inform me so clearly that it became undeniable. And when I studied anatomy, each time I would give birth, I too have 3 children. It's like when you look at a flower, when you're out in nature, when you see certain patterns, it's like there's so much perfection. There's so much perfection that and intelligence is undeniable. Like there's so much intelligence. There's so many synchronicities. There's so many ways in which we even receive guidance when we ask for it and look for it. That I also feel like our perception of God has been tainted in so many ways, because religions have oftentimes been have had agendas
infiltrated.
Yeah, for sure. So I think whether you call it universe or a higher power or source or creator, but it's undeniable, and it's so much bigger. Like I feel like right now, where I am right now, I'm starting to just recognize just how much bigger it has been than we could have even possibly imagined. And I'm open to that, and I'm excited to kind of venture and again, kind of.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Consider the possibilities of what that could even mean. So thank you for being on this journey. Thank you for pushing us out of our comfort zone. Thank you for asking us to ask more questions and look around us and see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And thank you for standing up, because you have inspired, as a result, so many others to stand up with you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being you too, because you're the same type of person as me. I can see we have a lot in common. Yeah. But thank you so much, and thank you for giving me the platform to be able to speak, because without the platforms, that would be difficult too.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we're here. We've got each other's back. We're being called to actually connect with one another for that reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you.